Hi friends, this is Kalpun Pisa. To your health. You know, we just had an election, and of course mentally healthy. And there was an atheist, but nobody realized that he is. He's not infected with ChristPsychosis. Obama won. Okay, good. This is 2012. Well, let me explain to you something about Jesus Christ, about Moses, about POTUS, and about personifications. Nobody seems to realize what they are. And of course, again, just to remind everybody, we are evolved, mutated primates that create thoughts with our brains. That's the most important thing that we must keep in mind. Every time we discuss anything, we study any science, we study things, we go to church, or anything that you do, we start believing in the spirits. And you're having a little delusions and thoughts. Always keep in mind that the organ that is creating all those thinking, all the thoughts, and making all those connections, and making you make those sounds to communicate, because there are 8,000 different languages in the planet, is our brains. The main God and personified was the sun, the star that gave us life. Primitive man, hey, you know, is the star going to come back in the morning, the God? So when night fall, there were demons. There was darkness. You could not see. What about if storms happen? Then and it gets cold, and the winter, and the sun is gone, and you know, during spring everything comes back. So everything was personified, and in Egypt they did that, and they worshipped the God. But the fertilizing rays of the sun that made everything grow was equivalent to our penises. That looks like a snake, and it gives you this tremendous pleasure, this excitement that they didn't understand in those days, by biology, human biology, and 40,000 years ago. So everything was product of the gods. A baby was a product of the gods. You had all these pheromones making everybody crazy, make the male crazy. The vagina is exuding all these pheromones. And the glands of Bartholin, creating the lubricant and all that, and everything in the forest, everything around excites the person. And of course, the gland penis was very similar. It showed this white milk, because in ancient times they did masturbate, and this little milky fluid came out, and they said, "Ah, that feels so good!" every time they masturbated. But there was no such a word as masturbation. It was just something so exciting and so weird. And of course, ladies got pregnant, and the liver, and they stunk, and they had this blood, and they had this little baby, and they have this after birth, and all these things. So they had to connect that. They were connected that with the gods. And anything that fertilized the sun, the rays of the sun, it were like penises, just hitting. And then look at the sun sometimes, or look at the stars, and you see this rays coming in this direction. You squint your eyes and you see this, and the reflection, you see this little. So it's always this geometrical patterns in the sky. That's the reason you have the swastika, and you have all these stars, and you have the cross, and you have all this that are weird shapes. They're all geometrical. It happens all over the world. It happened in South America 10,000 years ago. They had the Zeon in the Native Americans. It's little squares going like this, and they have the cross, and they have the crooked cross, which is the swastika. Everything is related to that shape, these geometric shapes. They want to understand that. So then you have the geometrical shapes with the natural shapes, because there's no one straight line in the human body. In nature, you don't see that, because it deforms, But then this is what actually made these people, primitive men, to begin to see the gods and get these geometrical shapes, these star symbols on this. That was the cross. That's what the cross is. And it's also equated with the penis and with the producing orgasm, which is a blessing of the penis, which is a blessing of God. So the sun creates, the penis creates, and they start equating it. But they equate it with the snake, and they also equate it with bulls and all the different spirits, and then the birds. They couldn't figure out how the birds flew around, so they became messengers of the god, because the gods were the stars. That's what the gods are, stars. They had no idea they're floating in this air, which is the soul, which is the spirit world. So primitive men personified all that. They personified the wind, they personified the emotions, they personified the stars, they personified everything. Was even the cities, even the rivers. I knew everything was personified. And you saw it in Egypt. That's just when you see so many animals with human heads in Egypt. And you have all this personification. All the gods have all this human, the ibis and all this. Oh, there's a wisdom, the guy of wisdom, and the crocodile god, and the cat. Oh boy, the cat, I couldn't figure out the cats. So therefore they were gods, Bastet. And so you see all this stuff, and they have all these cults, and of course the penis. And the gods were all great, so there was no such a thing as racism in those days because of that fact. And there were no intolerance because they were as many gods they married. Nobody fought people because of the different gods. Never. They fought for territory or dominance and all that, but never because of the gods. Never. You never see that. It only happened today in actuality. The Christians and the Protestants and the morons and the Jews and the Islams and all these crazy people around this 21st century, they're theotarded, and that's what happens. But let's go with titles. The titles. So the kings become giving a title of the sun. Thousands of titles, but the sun. Son of the sun. Son. It's like Moses. Moses. It comes from Ra Moses, Egyptian. Moses means son of. And then you have Ra, the sun god. So Ra Moses is son of the sun god. And that's what eventually mutated into this Moses character nobody can find in history. And Julius Caesar, the same thing. He was the son of God, the divine, and the Christus, the Archerios Megistus, and the Christus, the Meritorious, the wonderful person, son of Venus, a descendant from Venus and Mars and the gods. So the title in Greek, Archerios Megistus, and Meritorious and Christus and all these different languages, these different things, become immutated into the Jesus Christ that we know today. It's like, for instance, you have Augusta Treverorum. Augusta is exalted one, is the title of Octavius, the son of God, of Caesar, with the Emperor Octavius Augustus. That was the son of God, a divine entity. And they name a lot of things after him, a lot of cities after him. So you have, but you don't have the names today. Augusta Treverorum is the exalted city of the Treveri because of the god, the sun god Augustus. And the Treveri was a tribe. So Augusta Treverorum is Trier, Germany. The city of Trier in Germany, the oldest city in Germany is Trier. But the name was Augusta Treverorum. And you have a city in Spain, also named after Augustus, the son of God, which is Zaragoza. But the name was Caesar Augusta. Caesar Augusta, which mutated into Zaragoza. And Lugudunum in France, of course, is Lyon in France. So all those things changed name. Cumulodonum, Colchester. You see that? So that's what happens, and everything mutates. So Julius Caesar was an Archelaus Megistus, which eventually mutated into Jesus Christ, which was a title held by Augustus, then Tiberius, then Caligula, then Nero, Caligula, then Claudius, and then you have Nero, and then you have the three other emperors, and then you have Galba, and eventually Vespasian, and then Titus, and then Domitian, and all. They were all Jesus Christ, Dominus et Deus, God and Lord. These angels or cupids with the thyrsus represents the sons of Venus that float around as messenger of the god. Here is a representation of death, the trumpet that is extinguished. Here, representation of silence, Harpocrates. Here is from Native Americas, the symbol of the cross in a shell. And here, the same equivalent in the Pantheon. Here is in the Colosseum in Rome, and you see the cross symbol, which is the symbol of the sun. Everything has its connections all over the world. Here is the representation of Neptune, the ocean, and Alfred 3D. And look at the ribbons on top, which represents the spirit world. Here is Venus, the vagina in the sky, showing that it's going to shoot milk or semen. And the Virgin Mary, the same thing. Look at the moon, all the equivalent, is the same representation. Here is Artemis, and with the many eggs, which represent the glans penis. And here is a modern representation of the vagina in the sky, a vulva. And the shell represents the vagina. And here is Venus again. And here is a baptism with the priest using a shell to baptize a child. Obvious representation. Here is a begging Venus for love. Look at the earring, which is a cross, representative of the sun. Here is Jesus inside the vagina, in the mandorla, in paintings of the Middle Ages. And here the fallopian tubes also, they look like a bovine. So that's the reason the skull, which is the cranium, represents that. Here's a representation of the past and the future in Janus, the two faces. Here is a representation of a character from the nymph from the oceans. And here is Emperor Hadrian represented as Mars with Venus. Here, this is a representation of a city. As you can see, that is everybody will think it's a person. No, it's a representation of a city. And here's a representation of the planet Mars as the god of war. Here is a representation of Aesculapius, the health with the penis, which is the snake. And here is a representation of drunkenness. This lady that with the jar of wine represents drunkenness. Here, representation of the moon with the drop in the air. Representation of Cupid, which is actually one of the servants of Venus. Here is representation of the primavera, of the flora. This is a representation of Gallia. The tribes of Gallia, represented by women. Here is a representation of a fan, which the Christians chop the penis off. And here is a representation of the chariot of the gods, victory. Here, representation in a cube of the Hermes is a phallic god. Also, here is an athlete bringing the god of victory, the fan. These are representation of a fan fertilizing the earth. There is a representation of many penises. Another, which you look at the shape of the cross with an erect penis, which is a representation of the sun rays. And here is temptation of a satyr against a young guy that is reaching adolescence. Here you can see the mushrooms, very equivalent to Venus. Here you have the sacred flowers, entheogens, and the erect penis receiving the libations. And notice the cross on this area here, representing the sun. The pharaoh is having this hat, which is equivalent to the penis, the uncircumcised penis, as you can see here. It's very symbolic, nothing pornographic. And all these people were bisexual by nature. You have homosexuality didn't exist as such. This you have the helmets, all represented the erect, the gland penis. This is very obvious. And this is what Christ-psychotic infected imbeciles in the armies of the United States are stupid, ignorant people. They don't realize that everybody have their boyfriends and girlfriends. And there was no such a thing as one wife and one woman. It's ridiculous. Look at the papacy here. The popes wear this penis on their heads, just like the German during the Kaiser. And here you have the Ouroboros. In other words, the penis creating everything. So this is basically the problem when in this 21st century, people suffer from a neurological disorder of God belief, of gods, and they stack in the past, in centuries past. They don't want to progress. In other words, people are conservative. They conserve, they keep everything the same. That's basically the reason when you have the Republicans and conservative and they rank everybody down, these people have a neurological problem that makes them stuck in the past, and they keep learning, they take their children, and they keep them theotarded. In other words, delay because of a God belief. Gods do not exist, the creation of the brain. In ancient times, they believe everything in the stars were representations of gods. And as we know, for a fact, because it's proving in epigraphy, and the evidence is there, if you're intelligent enough and you know how to connect the dots and you can see them, it's very obvious that the titles became persons, became people. So the title of Julius Caesar, the son of Venus that was sacrificed, his blood was sacred, his title was Archerios Megisto, that mutated into Jesus Christus, and today is known as Jesus Christ, with all the different attributes of the previous emperors that were all Jesus Christ. It's the same like POTUS, President of the United States, and you have, they say, mutates. In other words, and they think that POTUS is a person. It's a real person, very powerful. But nobody can find POTUS in history. Because POTUS is not just one person, it's many of them. It's a composite. Same thing happened to Jesus Christ, the title. Or it happens to Moses. That means, which is actually Ra Moses, because Moses means son of, and Ra, the son God. Ra Moses is a title of a pharaoh that means son of the sun god Ra. So it's title. Ramses the second, Ramses the first. So Ramses is not a name. It's not like, say, Robert the first, Robert the second, Robert the third. No. It's a title. It's like, say, President of the United States #1, President of the #2, President number 2. In other words, POTUS Obama, POTUS Washington, POTUS Jefferson, POTUS Nixon, etc. And this is what these people in the United States, because they're infected with ChristPsychosis. Let's keep in mind, religion, when you have religion which is based on bizarre mathematical beliefs for 1700 years, and you're in control of a country, or empires, and you only believe in just one God, this imaginary friend, and you control, and you are the king, you are the emperor, the divine emperor or king of, like the Queen Elizabeth of England, that is appointed by God, the head of the church. Well, when you are in this situation, you control the country, you control everything, you control the armies, and the parents and everyone teach the children the beliefs of one God for 1500 years, 1700 years. And if other denominations spread to different countries, to different states, and the states become independent of the main mother country, like happened in the Roman Empire, you still have the main beliefs, and you distort the beliefs of the Christians. It's like United States of America. Let's say it's a Christian nation. All of a sudden, let's say the United States disintegrates. And all the states become little countries. But see, all the beliefs, the local beliefs of each state becomes their own belief, but it's very similar to the mother belief of the whole United States. They say all Christians. So all of a sudden, in Arizona, they mix Christianity with the Navajo Indians, and then in California with the Indians over there. So that you have this Christian mingle crap all over the place, and they start fighting each other, but they're all delusions. They're all irrational things. And what is incredible is that today, in this day and age, in the 21st century, when we know that we are product of a coitus, and we are evolved into primates, and the brain is the one that creates thinking, and the mind is neurologists and biology and science, and everything is in there, and people are still believing gods and demons and resurrecting saviors and angels and UFO abductions, and the Mormons believe in Prophet Moroni and magic stones and all that crap, which a simple brain operation will prove that these people are sick. And their delusions are nothing but delusions, bizarre beliefs, found also in schizophrenia and temporal lobe epilepsy, and they do not exist. Very simple. But they're stuck on these beliefs, and they are screwing up the country. And this reason, when you have Christianity, the ChristPsychosis, you have all these generals that believe in the morality of this Christian imbecility, theotardism from the 1700s and Middle Ages. I mean, from 1700 years ago. So country and religion and church are one. And the same thing happens today. There's no separation between church and state. One. The churches don't pay taxes, and then the morality is dictated and taught to children. And the morality is one man, one wife, and there's a little zombie that resurrected and saved with blood and save your everything with your blood, and which just doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. And be good, and then the angel, and this stuff, and sin, and crap. And the scientists, they have their head up the ass, in my opinion. They're stupid because they don't protest the imbecility of the majority of Americans. They are stuck in the Middle Ages and keep theotarded and imbeciles and ignorant because of churches in sub-positions of powers. Look at the Congress of the United States. Tremendous power there. But these people are imbeciles. The majority are infected with this zombie Christ belief, this psychosis. Supreme Court, 6 members believe in resurrecting zombies with blood. So this is the main problem. This is the reason we have all these deviants. You have these generals, like in ancient times, they don't realize Alexander the Great. In ancient times, so this great impact of the generals, they're all bisexual. Alexander the Great have their own society, their own lovers, companions, but not lovers in the sense of, muchi, no. In the sense that if you feel horny, you pray to the gods, and you have sex between each other, and you relieve the tension, and then you go fighting, and you love each other as brothers, But you go back to your wife, so you want to have a kid. This is what these imbeciles don't understand. We're all bisexual by nature. But in this day and age, you cannot live only with one woman or one man. You have to go spread your seed. And this is what this temptation of all these generals happen, and then they're going to be kicked out. And they have to resign, and presidents have to resign because it's imbecility. When in ancient time, would be laughing at us completely. So what is it? A bunch of crazy people in the 21st century. They're imbeciles. So this is the problem that we have to keep that in mind, as you can see here. The psychosis of God belief.
As much by the economy as any other issue, just like any other Americans. But again, to attempt to turn the economy around. And so it seems like they disregarded the message of their own leadership. Again,
don't call it Christian right. Call it a schizophrenic right. People stuck in the Middle Ages with brain defects. Because believing God and faith is nothing but a malfunction of the brain, not unlike a schizophrenia. Let's keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. The brain is the creator of thoughts. When it malfunctions, when it's sick, it creates God believe. You can see these churches keep the mind of people ignorant. Ignorant. They don't teach them science. The hurricane comes around, wipes them out. All these problems that they have because they don't understand science, because they are kept ignorant over millennia and centuries by attending church. And notice the priests, they all keep the same vestments of 1,000 years ago. It's like the senators, they should wear togas. The senators of the United States should wear togas. The generals, instead of having this hats and stuff, they should wear just like the generals in the Roman generals, like Hadrian and Trajan. But the thing that they were healthy. In other words, they have many gods. They didn't have only one theotarded, imbecilic, zombie god that resurrected and saved with blood, like the generals believe today, because their brains are weak, and they haven't been able to get rid of the fantasies and imbecilities that were taught to them by their Christianity-infected parents and society. See, one man and one wife, and then all of a sudden they have... See, this is the imbecility you see here. You see, and this is the greatest problem. So the churches should be shut down. These people are theotarded and imbeciles, and they suffer from ChristPsychosis. Gods do not exist. People don't resurrect. We create thinking the thoughts with the brain. If the brain malfunctions, then you start accepting bizarre metamagical beliefs of gods and crap and UFO abductions and the rest of nonsense as if were reality. In other words, religious beliefs are organized schizophrenia. Here are personifications of gods, and look at the bunch of eyes, little eyes on the men's skin. Also the symbol of the cross, the symbol of the sun, here depicted. The rays of the sun also were equivalent to penises, and you can see that in mushrooms too, because they resemble the gland penis and they have this milky substance too. So they were considered a divine representation of God. The same thing like horns on bulls and animals, snakes were also represented. And of course, many mushrooms give you, they were hallucinogenic, and they were used in sacraments. This is all over the Roman Empire in epigraphy. You can actually see this if you understand what it is. But they use those mushrooms to see God in all religious ceremonies, because religions began by the ingestions of entheogens 40,000 years ago. So there was also equated representation of the sky, an orgasm, and the sexual organs. They were like the stars represented as men, because it was all, the sex was a sacred act in all religious rituals, sex and drugs.
You can take religion out of sex nowadays, but never sex out of God belief and religion. They all go hand in hand, because this is the creator God.
So the ancients saw symbolism on everything, and they used a lot of psychotropic substances or entheogens to see the gods. This is obvious, and all related to orgasm.
Of course, the symbol of the city of Pompeii, the flying penis, which of course you have the resemblance as a mushroom. So in ancient times, people saw this as divine, because they personified everything. These were divine. They were the god Priapus. That's the reason the penis was considered a symbol of health, and of course divinity, since the ancient Egyptians.
ChristPsychosis infected imbeciles in this 21st century. They don't realize that we are universes. Our brain are the universe we create thoughts with. And we are all having immune systems, and we have cells, we're composed of cells, and they are constantly under attack by viruses. And we suffer radiation, that means that we get older, including the piece of shit ChristPsychosis infected imbeciles stuck in the Middle Ages. That's causing all the problems in this world today, the morons, but with a lot of power. And thanks to the piece of shit churches and missionary pieces of garbage, deluded imbeciles don't know anything about science. But you know, the truth is, they get old, we all get old, and the virus take over, because we cannot, our defense system goes down. And then we die. Our brain shut down, and the only bacteria we have is, the only life after death we'll have is bacteria eating our remains, making us decompose. More virus will form. Learn science here.
A separate protein squeezes the bubble free, delivering the virus into the cell's interior. Viruses reach the nucleus. They will take over the cell and create an army of clones. Endosome prison. The virus army is now one step closer to its goal of reaching the nucleus. But 90% will go no further.
So, mentally healthy, also known as atheist scientists, and President of American Atheist Association, all these people that are highly intellectual, wake up. You're doing a great disservice to humanity by being pussies, cowards, stupid imbeciles with a head up their ass, but with brilliant brains. And your brilliant brains are inside your ass. Morons, blind morons, that don't realize that you were product of a fuck, okay, product of coitus of a fuck, born with a brain lacking any knowledge, and then that if the brain malfunctions, it creates bizarre metamagical beliefs at the core of all religions and also mental disorders. Now listen, scientists and atheists like Dawkins and Harris and Dennett and etc., etc. The brain creates thought. When the brain malfunctions and is sick, creates God belief. Get your brilliant intellectual heads out of your ass and expose the mental disease of God belief. Otherwise, we all will go extinct thanks to you imbeciles with the knowledge and scientists that don't speak out and fight the psychotic morons with their defective brains that are ruining the countries. Being allowed to be elected senators, elected doctors, become doctors and professionals when they believe in zombies that resurrect and say with blood. Okay, scientists, wake up, atheist. Get your brilliant heads out of your ass and expose zombie God belief for the disease it is. Mental disease. Pace deorum. Enjoy the truth. 2 + 2 = 4. Not any number you think it is.